In the spring of 2019, we reported on a federal lawsuit involving the chalking of tires by the city of Saginaw to enforce parking regulations. The case was recently decided for a second time by the U.S. Court of Appeals, and the outcome is the focus of tonight's Legal Edge with local attorney Bryan Waldman.
Remind us about this case, Bryan.
Sure. Between 2014 and 2017, Siobhan, a woman in the city of Saginaw got, I believe it was 15 parking citations. All of those citations were the result of parking enforcement putting a chalk marker or chalking her tires to prove that the car hadn't been moved in whatever amount of time it was that it needed to be moved. And she challenged all of those citations, saying it was a violation of her constitutional rights. More specifically, it was a violation of her Fourth Amendment protection against unreasonable searches. The trial court ruled that this was not a violation of her constitutional rights. And so she appealed to the U.S. Court of Appeals in Cincinnati, the Sixth Circuit. And the U.S. Court of Appeals said, no, trial court, you got it wrong. In a nutshell, Siobhan, in 2019, the Court of Appeals said, this is a search. The marking of the tires, the chalking of the tires is a search. And so as a general rule, whenever there's a search, you need a warrant. The only time you don't need a warrant is if the government can show that some exception to the requirement for a warrant applies. Back in 2019, the court looked at two of the recognized exceptions and said they don't apply. They don't apply here, City of Saginaw.
So if the Court of Appeals decided this back in 2019, why are we hearing about it again now?
The city claimed to the Court of Appeals there's another exception. It's the administrative exception, which applies typically to highly regulated industries when there's some risk to the public health or public welfare. And the Court of Appeals this time around said, no, parking is not a risk to public welfare. This isn't a highly regulated industry. This administrative exception doesn't apply. So we stand by our previous ruling. You can't chalk tires, City of Saginaw.